Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and I want to talk to you about this game. It's called Zerywia, and this is the cover of this awesome wooden box that I was given. So this is a cooperative game, cooperative fantasy game, in which the players take on the roles of heroes that are trying to, depending upon the scenario, basically trying to save their world from imminent destruction from massive powers and colossal gods or giants or something, depending once again on the scenario that you are going to run. The players themselves are odd. I guess, you know, it's like not the players playing, the characters playing, because of the fact that they aren't truly like normal. They're not normal. They're human, but they're not, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. It is a fantastic game that has a great deal of narrative elements going on. It has a lot of different like kind of sandboxy things going on that allow you to kind of choose how you're going to go ahead and do the adventure, and you don't have to play the adventure the same way every single time. Hello, cat. It's one of those games where it holds up to repeated plays because the options that you're allowed as you play the game are so varied and different that each time you do go through the scenario, you know, it'll be a different story and it'll be a different challenge, if you will. So let me show you or give you kind of just an overview of how this one's played, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Zerywia, and this is the prototype that I was given. A very, very high quality prototype, I should mention, but just keep that in mind as I'm showing you how this game is played, because it may differ slightly for when the game is published. Now, as I said, this is a very high quality prototype. I really love the artwork. I love these miniatures. I'm just going to show you a couple of them real quick. Now, mind you, like these minis that they have here, I mean, these aren't painted at all. This is just with like an earth wash. If you're a GW person, like if somebody just took the mini and put some Agrax Earthshade on it, they are highly detailed, as you can see. They look fantastic. And I'm sure, like if you wanted to take the time to paint them and make them look amazing, you could. But I mean, these look awesome just as is. So I just give them credit, and a lot of credit for creating something and creating miniatures that are super cool. Now, the game itself is a fairly straightforward fantasy type of situation. It is a bit of a gritty and grim world that you're running around in. Like, I really love the mythology of this thing. I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of games out there that are, you know, which is not a bad thing when I say that they're Viking themed, which I think is cool. But the fact is that this isn't Norse themed. This is like a Slavic or like has its roots in like a Slavic mythos, which is actually a pretty cool mythos if you take the time to delve into it. This is there's this evil goddess Nyx that has sent this being, this horrible like crow-faced wizard named Ugmore, who is trying to bring her to the world and bring her into the world to, like, you know, plunge the world into eternal darkness and chaos. Pretty straightforward, but you know, it works, and it's just a really cool, nefarious villain that you have to deal with. So the board itself, as you can probably see, it's separated into different areas. These little tokens out here, depending upon the scenario, you'll have tokens out there. You'll have setups. Setups will be different, you know, and there are going to be a lot of different scenarios when the game comes out. But like these tokens are called Merc tokens, and basically they're like the spreading of evil influence, and they're one of the things that the players will have to try to make sure that they take care of and destroy. Because if they don't, then the power of darkness will collect on this Citadel of Silence, which is this island where Nyx and her like cohort, this Ugmore, hang out. And he leaves the island too. There's like situations where like he will actually come out and attack. He doesn't just sit there and wait for the players to come and get him. There will be situations where you will draw cards that will tell you, oh, you happen to be in a place where there's Merc, and Merc is expanding in that area. Then Ugmore comes to you, and he will, if you're not ready for him, he will beat you down. So it's kind of a neat little thing that happens. I remember, like, I believe it's the game Darkest Night, where it had a necromancer that would actually chase the players around. It didn't, the big bad guy didn't just sit there and wait and allow you to level up, and eventually, you know, like just, you know, when you got strong enough, it would come and get up. This one will track you down if you don't do a good enough job. Something I liked a lot about this game, and I might add, I just really like the narrative of this game. The fact that, like, it is kind of an open exploration crawl, but it's like, you know, the ever-present worry that you're going to waste too much time, and you know, like, the world will, as you're trying to, you know, level up your characters. I mean, you know, there's not really levels per se, but as you're trying to power up your characters, you might take too long to do that, and then by the time you feel like you're strong enough to go at them, it'll be too late. You know, the evil will be too powerful. But and I'll talk about this, and I'm not really telling you anything about the game, how it's played. The mechanisms of this game are pretty straightforward. They're really straightforward. But for me, like I said, it's the storytelling aspect, the narrative, the background, the world, that really drew me in and made me excited to play. But that being said, just because, like, the scenarios will have, like, if this happens, then this kind of thing. So, like, this particular scenario, what you're trying to do is you're trying to eventually satisfy, and I'm once again jumping ahead here a little bit, but you're trying to get through these trials. And these trials are important because they eventually will lead you to the point where you're able to have the Spear of Life. And the Spear of Life is the only weapon that can destroy Ugmore. And so you have to go through all of these trials and to eventually be able to claim that spear. Now, once you have that spear, you and your cohorts can head to the Citadel of Silence, or perhaps he'll come out to attack, and you can all rush over to fight him. But if you lose, which is very possible, just because you have the Spear of Life doesn't mean that you're going to be able to defeat him. If you lose, you're in a situation there where you know, he will actually then take the spear and he will corrupt it and make it evil. Here, I'll see if I can find that card real quick here. And yeah, so like here, he would take that spear and he would make it the Defiled Spear, and he would actually then use it, and you would then go to the next stage of the scenario. And I don't want to give too much away because you know, it's a totally new and different thing that you're going to have to do in that situation. And that's kind of one of the nice things about this too. Yeah, the first time you play it, everything's gonna be fresh and new and like, oh my gosh, what's going on, which is I like. And obviously, like, you know, that's one of those storyline things where it's like, oh, okay, you don't get surprised by this story the next time you do it. But the nice thing about this is that it is there are different branches and there's different ways for you to tell the story. So just because you go through the narrative once doesn't mean that you can't go and do it and have a fresh new experience. But I'm all over the place there with my explanation. Let me go back and focus on what the players do. So on your turn, and mind you, when the players are playing, this isn't like, okay, I'll go, then my buddy goes, then you go, and so on and so forth. It's a cooperative experience, so everybody's going to be talking and discussing and doing things. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this token and like this, and you might be able to see this, but it's like morning, midday, and then evening, and then midnight. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be like moving this, and these are your actions during the day, and eventually you go to here, and that's a rest action. Now, you could, as one player, you could just take all your actions, like I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and I'm going to move here, I'm going to explore here, I'm going to I'm going to turn in this quest here, all those things, right? But there are times when you're going to want to meet up with one of the other players, and just because you're in the same spot at the same time, if you aren't both at the same time period, then you aren't technically in the same spot because you're traveling around. And like, you know, if you are, you know, in like this stronghold here at noon, and then you leave, even if somebody is there, but their time would be like in the morning at the stronghold. But you know, technically, I mean, that person could wait and stay there, and then you could meet up. But if they leave, then you know, you wouldn't be there at the same time. So that's like one of those things that I think is kind of cool and interesting as far as the timing goes. Now, so what happens on your turn is you're going to be making up your mind as far as what you want to do. Do you want to try to, you know, solve the process to get through the first stage of the Spear of Life? Each one of these players has, like, this one is like kind of this like crazed druid. And I should mention that the characters are really cool also. This, as I said, is a grim and gritty fantasy world, but the heroes themselves are heroic. And by that I mean they've been like touched by the supernatural. They have powers above and beyond that of mortal humans. So you know, you definitely feel epic and strong and amazing in this game. So it's something to be mentioned. Now, each player will have like their little player card. So here you have, this is Goriv the Hungerer, which is a great name, mind you. Plus he's got a beard, and I always play the guy with the beard. And then, like, you can see he has a starting stats of 5, 5, and 5. So, you know, those are his starting stats. And then it says, you know, and then there's, like, as always, there's, like, special abilities. And these cards will, like, whenever you have a card that tells you, like, you have a special ability, it'll tell you what phase of the game you get to use that special ability. This is, like, when you're rolling dice, you're doing challenges. So when you're doing that, you can add 2 dice to your prime set. So you can add 2 of the instinct dice to your prime set. And then also... And then it says, like, during his campfire, I'm trying to get the focus, during the camping phase, you know, he can restore 1 of his primal sets and also 2 of I apologize, the life thing. So I should mention that, like, you have your 3 different like stats, and those will be used to handle challenges depending upon the actual challenge that you draw and the challenge that you get. Over here you have these decks that are the exploration decks, and you can go and like decide to like head to spots where merc tokens are, and then draw like basically have usually about 90% of the time, you're going to end up fighting an enemy of some sort. And you have to defeat that enemy to defeat that merc token, which is a good thing, because you don't want those merc tokens to spread. But if you're just going out and looking for trouble, you can, all these locations, and it's kind of tough, it might be small, but you can see, like here, you can see there is this mountains there, and you can also see there's this spot that says like a stronghold or like a village. And so like you could choose which one of these 2 cards you wanted to draw if you're going to explore that particular spot. So now you might be saying, well, okay, why am I exploring? Well, in order to solve challenges, you have to explore certain things. So each player has the ability to level up their particular abilities. So like, so you have your starting abilities, and then so so this is like his branchwood ability. This is kind of like his like the armor of the forest. So like he actually has like wood and, you know, like an armor, like a natural armor that grows about him. So you can see here, so it's like, and then there's this little backstory here for Root Sentinel, and it says, as a member of the Druid Oath, you are protected by the primal forces of nature. The gods maybe are forgotten, but the elemental power of the earth is eternal. Find a way to awaken its strength. And so it has these 3 symbols here, and I'll wait for those to come in focus for you. Now what you have to do is, if you can get those 3 symbols, then you can turn this in, and then if you notice on the bottom here, wait for it to focus, you will see that there are these 2 things. So if you can go Briar Armor or Primal Roots, and you can decide which, once you get those 3 tokens, you do that. And so then when you turn those in, depending upon which one you take, Briar Armor or the roots, like you would like so, and the game says like, oh, you know, you should just pick one and see what happens, and I kind of like that, but I mean, you can definitely look if you want to. And so like Primal Roots and Briar Thorn Armor or Thornmoor are two different things. I mean, they have different effects, and they will, you know, improve you in different ways. And so that's another way that you can play the game, and you can play the game differently the next time that you play. So how do you get those different tokens? And remember, these tokens are for all of the challenges, including, like, if we take our, like, the Trial of Awe, which is like our first step of the Spear of Life, you can see that you have those. You have to collect these 3 tokens, and then you have to go to this location on the board, and then you have to do this challenge. And if you can defeat that challenge and have these 3 tokens, then you would take care of the Trial of Awe, and you'd move on to the next step of the Spear of Life challenge that you're trying to do. All right, so how do all these things work as far as the dice? Very, very important. So let's say, you know, I have, this character is here in the Cadaver Estuary, and they want to do an explore action in this place with the forest. And so they would draw one of these, and then you can have, so it just says, you know, this is it says salt marshes. Long forgotten, lands and waters underground, the prime is sleeping. Draw an enemy. And then it tells you if you can't activate certain abilities. Like, you know, if you had abilities that have this marker on them, you would not be able to activate those. So that's a pretty straightforward. And I'll draw an enemy here in just a second and show you combat, but I want to show you something else really quickly. So sometimes these won't be draw an enemy. They will have like choices that you have to make. So like here's one that says this one says Devereaux slavers. I can't even spell. Silent hunters kidnap children to the village, leaving behind lots of gravely wounded guards. And then it gives you 2 options, and you can like you can spend to track down and confront and free the children from their hands, and you have to draw an enemy to do so, or stay in the village to help those who are closer to death every second at the end of the day, thanks to the kindness they live. And then like you would get 2 different things. But I want to point out this one over here. This says heroic. Now, you will take and do certain things that will give you certain keywords, and when you get things that give you keywords, you have this this saga stone over here. You're going to place them that say heroic. Later on, you will have things that you will discover where it'll say, if you are heroic, get this. And there's all kinds of those. There's things that are say you are feared, or if you are like holy, or all kinds of different things. And even some of the things that you take as far as like the different like level ups and the different powers you take will have those effect on you as well, because of the fact that you're just kind of you're becoming once again something beyond you're becoming more and more of this supernatural like creature, and less of a human as you progress. Okay, so I talked about drawing an enemy. So like in that situation where you drew an enemy, you go to this deck and you draw an enemy, and then you have like here it says like Devereaux Hunters, and it says Spearhead the Scorn, reveal this enemy. Reveal this enemy gets they would get a merc token if you are injured, but so there's a little special ability there. But then it shows you here that you have to basically solve the results that are up here. You have to get a green hit, a red hit, and if you're unable to do that, then you will take a hit to your green. So when this happens, what you will do in any kind of challenge, and this is like whether you're fighting or whether you're doing a challenge on the board, what you're going to end up doing is you are going to grab your prime set of dice. And depending upon different abilities that tell you what type of dice that you can pull, or what type of dice you can draw. And these will be determined by the abilities that you have here, by items that you have, by using your primal forces, which are here, lots of different things. So like this one says, like you can add 2. Normally what you would do is you just have to spend these attributes like so, and normally you can just take one of each die, and you would take, you know, one of each die and you'd roll these. But in a lot of cases, like this enemy that we drew, like the blue dice doesn't even matter. You know, we don't even need that die. Now you might have a weapon or an ability or a power that will allow you to change successes on the blue dice into red or green dice, but you know, in many cases you don't. So sometimes, like you know, Gorix has the ability, I can add 2 of these green dice to my prime set, and I can take this 1 red die. Now this is perfect, exactly what I need. I can get rid of that blue, I don't need to have it, and I can roll these 3. Now the other thing you have to do is you have to take one of these Oblivion dice as well. The Oblivion dice, when you roll them, they will, like, certain depending upon what you roll, like the challenge or the enemy you have will have some sort of reaction to it. Now, basically what this comes down to is, like, you either succeed or you fail, and if you fail, you take damage. And when you take damage, it tells you in this, like, and some will have more, but right there it tells you I would take a green damage, because that's the non-colored one. So more or less, like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get this, and I did. So I'm going to get my success, and I'm going to be able to defeat this challenge, and then I would do that. Now, mind you, I've already spent those things, but you can get those back. Now, sometimes, like, you might be saying, well, wait a minute, like, and this is obviously the big bad guy, but I mean, that has lots of dice. How do you get that? Well, as you later on, like, you can have players in the same spot that can aid people. You can also burn up these primal energies that you have. One of them you can use to re-roll, like anything. 1 die that was rolled. You can spend 2 of them to change one of the dice of your primal set to any color you want, or you can spend all 3 to just add a die of any color. Now, that combined with, like, different like items and magic and, like, powerful abilities that you get as the game progresses, you will be able to have more dice during those challenges. Now, I grabbed these because these are this is an item deck. Sometimes we succeed in an exploration challenge, you will get to draw this. You can also, when you go to settlements, you can sometimes, I'll come back to this, but sometimes you'll be able to trade, like, the different, like, when you succeed in the challenge, you're going to get tokens, and you'll be able to exchange certain tokens for items as well. And items, as you can probably guess, are just things that give you abilities that are, like, they break the rules in some way. And like, here's like this thing. It says the Emberstone, and notice it says, if you are heroic, reroll up to 2 dice. And so, like, that, remember I always said, like, we have this thing down here that says heroic. So now, like, that item gets, because you have that keyword, because you have done an action prior to that, that item then has that power. And that's kind of like, once again, this whole, like, story and continuation of, like, the choices that you make matter as you play the game. Something that like I said, are really, really, really awesome. And once again, tells a story as you play. And that's really what, you know, I look for in these types of games. I want to be told a story. I want to be part of some sort of epic movie in my head when I play. Now, I apologize, I blanked, I forgot about the token. So when you succeed at a particular challenge or defeating, what you'll get to pick, like, in some cases you only have one choice. Like here, you can take a forest token and you'd place that on there because I succeeded in a challenge in that forest space. Sometimes you'll be in a place with a stronghold, or you'll be in a place that has ruins, or any other one of many different types of results or whatever. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to collect these particular like tokens, because then you can then turn them in to complete that first phase, or whatever phase of the trial or the adventure that your particular character is trying to accomplish at that time. And again, it may be difficult for you to see, but there, like these like on these locations, there's these small little tiny symbols that and I think they're going to make them bigger, actually, when the game is published, so they're easy to spot. But you'll be able to choose one of those different color symbols, and you can go and seek out those areas to actually do that. All right, so I hope you have a pretty good idea. I mean, each action, actions are pretty straightforward. If you move, it takes an action. If you encounter a spot, it takes an action. If you take a challenge, it takes an action. You'll see locations with these little anchors on them. If you're on a spot that has an anchor, you can use a move action to go from that spot to another spot with an anchor. So it's just like considered you're taking a ship to get those spots. Now, when everybody has used up all of their things and you go into the camping phase, that is when you are going to start doing the evil phase, which will cause the spreading of murk and the spreading of the evilness in the world and what you're supposed to be fighting. Remember, these murk spots, if you don't defeat them, things are going to happen that are going to cause murk to spread out of those. So like here you have, this is like the Seeker of the Stone, spread the murk at the Zerywia remnants in this Thymor. Oh, and I should mention, I apologize. So as this moves about each turn, and so like each one of these quadrants is called a Thymor or a Thymer. And depending upon which, where we're pointed, so that we're pointed here, we're pointed there, and so forth, like that is the spot that's going to be affected. So it says spread the murk on the Zerywia remnants in this Thymor. So Zerywia remnants are, just so you know, and there's lots of places, there's this tiny symbol. I apologize, you can't see it, but like this is the Zerywia remnants. And so like so in this case, like you'd spread murk in that location. And then if there's a hero in that region, then it's like move Ugmore there and challenge the hero with one of the Ugmore's attacks. So this is like one of those things where, remember I talked about how Ugmore will leave the Citadel of Silence and actually, track you down. So being in certain locations, being in the spot where the evilness is pointed is sometimes needed, but it can be dangerous because you can draw attention to yourself. So when you actually do challenge at the very end and defeat them, you will have to like there are definite like the attacks that Ugmore has are much greater and much more devastating and they'll do a great more. So like here's like incinerate. And and if you are unable to it's like you can't use your primal energies for that, and he'll be able to do extra damage. And normally when he comes and tracks you down, he just uses one of his attacks and just tries to beat you down, and then like he's eventually able to like weaken you slowly but surely. And I should also mention when you knock these attributes down to spend them, because remember, like there's no like, oh, you can only do one explore. You could explore in the same location multiple times if you wanted to. You could fight if there was like multiple murk things, you could have one battle to destroy this murk location. You can move here on the next turn, and then you could fight to pursue that. And you can you just keep spending these as you do these challenges. But when you rest, you have to bring them back up. When you take damage to these things because of failed things, you actually are going to move these wooden tokens down like so, and then that becomes your new maximum for that particular stat. You can heal those, however, but you have to heal your attributes up to this level before you can then get this back up to the top level and be fully healed as far as those stats are concerned. And the same goes with this. You get these back. You can get these back when you camp as well. So you can definitely get your primal energies back as well. So don't be stingy with your resources, which are basically your attribute points and these primal energies. Don't be stingy with those on your turn, but be cognizant of what you're doing and where you're at, and because you can be killed. Your characters can very well be killed, and sometimes like they can die in a very, very epic fashion. Like they can sacrifice themselves to destroy the goddess Nyx and things like that. And once again, having an amazing story and a narrative that you'll remember and talk about a lot, but. You will definitely be I'm not saying your characters aren't fragile by any means. You have to have some really bad luck, or the game has to take some really dark turns for you to be in danger of being of losing or having your character killed. But it definitely can happen, so you should be on the lookout. All right, so the big thing is that usually scenarios land one of two ways. In this case, you're either going to collect the Spear of Life, and then you're either going to defeat Ugmore, or Ugmore is going to defeat you, and then get the Defiled Spear. Or when bad things happen, what happens is that these. If there's Merc tokens out there, and then if these will collect onto the Citadel of Silence, and if those ever grow too much, what they will do is they will actually remove one of, this is kind of the idea that they're removing the faces of light, or the faces of the god from this god pillar that's in the middle. And if these ever fill up with black discs, then unfortunately the end of the world has come, and Nyx has sent this world into chaos and oblivion. Grim, but also makes for a good story as well. So I invite you to go ahead and download the rules that are on the Kickstarter page. It also has some wonderful background information on this world to kind of really let you dive in deep into the narrative, which is something I really, really like the fact that they took the time to do. And I hope this gives you a pretty good idea of how the game works. I didn't want to go through an entire session or anything like that, but just remember the biggest thing is that every single challenge involves these dice. To get these dice, you have to spend your attributes, and you can usually only have 3 dice at maximum to be able to be spent to take on a challenge. However, you can spend primal energies, or use weapons, or use abilities, or have allies in the same area that can aid you in those actions. But I love the game. It's a heck of a lot of fun. I like games like this. These are the kind of games that got me into the hobby in the first place, and I'm always excited to play new ones of this genre. But let me talk about that and more in my final thoughts. Alright, so thank you very much for taking the time to watch that. I wasn't going to throw this one around, or I should say I wasn't going to let that guy up there throw this one down to me, just because I didn't really want to damage this box. But alright, so I've already told you I really dig it. Like I said, the fact of the matter is that the mechanisms of how you move about the board and explore the board and see what's going on are extremely, like I said, straightforward. If you've played games like this before, it's not going to be a surprise to you. However, what is going to be a surprise for you is, and I like I said, I didn't really go deep into the scenario or the storyline, because there's some cool little, I'm not going to say legacy, because this isn't a legacy game, obviously, because the storyline itself is once you've played it, you've played it. But I say that because I don't want you to I didn't want to give it away, because there are some really cool secrets and some cool twists and turns, and not just with the main story itself, also just the different things that you can do, the different encounters you can have, the different challenges you can take part in. And the fact of the matter is that each one of those different heroes that you can play is its own little kind of beast to kind of dive into and investigate. And there's so many different powers and abilities and skill trees that you can branch off with in those, that, like I said, you could play the exact same scenario over and over and over again, but the way that you tell the story and the way that you experience the story is going to be different each and every time because of all those different variables. It is a game that doesn't get out of it. It is a game that does not get in its way. I stress that a great deal with cooperative games, or games in general, really. Don't let the rules and the presentation of the game get in the way of finding the fun. There's nothing I hate more where, like, I look over at a table and I see people playing a game and there's like 3 people looking bored staring at their phone, and there's one guy with the rule book, just nose buried in it, trying to find out, exactly how they're supposed to be doing this particular turn or moving forward on that particular turn. Sometimes, like, heavier games, things like that, fine. You signed up for that. But this is a cooperative game. This is a game where you're all supposed to be telling your each individual portion of the adventure and coming up with an epic experience. This is not a situation where, like, people need to be, like, bogged down into minutia and trying to determine those things. You should be always, like, kind of moving forward and experiencing the game and having fun with it. And instead of, like, trying to figure out if you've collected the right token, or do I get to re-roll that die, or things like that. So I appreciate the fact that the rule set for this one it's not simple. The game's not simple. I don't want you to take it like that. I don't want you to say, oh, it must be a pretty simple game. No, it's very difficult, actually. The game itself is very tough to defeat. And I think one of the reasons why it is like that is because being defeated isn't really being defeated, as I kind of explained in how I explain how the game is played. Just because you would lose that battle and you would lose that Spear of Life, it doesn't mean the game is over. It just means that you've, like, added a new exciting chapter to the story, right? And there's lots of stuff like that in this game. And and like I said, I don't want to give a lot of it away. I want you to be able to experience it yourself, because nobody likes spoilers, right? So there you go. The game's awesome. It looks awesome. It's got a great theme. It's got great cooperative experience. And the game plays great solo as well. I played it solo a couple times. So I think you're really going to enjoy it if you like fantasy-themed cooperative solo experiences. I think this is kind of a must-have for your collection. So there you go. If you have any questions about Zerywia, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And always make sure to be the kindest human being and the best human being you possibly can be with every day of your life. I guarantee you, the more love you give the universe, the more love the universe will give back to you. Until next time, you are awesome. I'm the Undead Viking. I'll talk to you later.